Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We are holding today in Mishnah Berurah Chelek Hey. We're on Pei Amud Aleph, and we are in Siman Tuf Ayin Beis, and we begin today with Seif Beis. So we have been discussing the halachas of the Seder night. We're starting with the very beginning, getting ready for the Seder, and today we're going to be speaking about preparing the table for the Seder, and we're going to be discussing the halacha of Haseba, the requirement to lean when performing some of the mitzvahs of the Seder night. Says the Mechaber in Seif Beis, Yesader shulchanai yafeh bekelim na'im kefi kaichai. You should set your table with beautiful kelim, with beautiful vessels, beautiful dishes, beautiful decanters, kefi kaichai, as much as you are able to do so. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Vav, bekelim na'im. You should set your table with beautiful kelim, va'afal gav de b'chol hashana, even though all year long, toiv l'mayit bazeh mishum zeichel l'chorban. The Chavetz Chaim says that really all year long, this is not a practice that we're supposed to be using. We're not supposed to set our tables with such beautiful kelim throughout the year. We're supposed to be mimayit a little bit. We're supposed to minimize the use of beautiful kelim on our table. Why? As a zeichel l'chorban, for remembrance for the Churban Beis Hamikdash. We have to realize that this, we get so used to the fact, unfortunately, that we don't have a Beis Hamikdash and life goes on as usual. We have to remember that this is not the way life is supposed to be. We're supposed to have a Beis Hamikdash. We're supposed to be living al pi Torah in Eretz Yisrael with a Yiddish Malchus, with a Beis Hamikdash, with all the laws of Kachim and Taharis. That's the way we're supposed to be living. The fact that we're not, there's something that's very, very, very lacking. And that's supposed to be something that we recognize in our daily lives. So the Chavetz Chaim points out over here that really all year long, we're not supposed to beautify our table with kelim noim. We should be mimayit a little bit in that practice. However, b'leil Pesach, but on the night of Pesach, by the Pesach Seder, mitzvah laharbos. There's a mitzvah just the other way. We're supposed to be marbeh. We're supposed to increase the use of beautiful kelim. We're supposed to set a beautiful table for the Seder. Why? Shezeu b'chlal derech cherus, because that is cherus. That is one of the ways that by the Seder we show freedom, we show richness, we show freedom, we show liberty. That's the theme of the night. So one of the ways we show cherus is by putting out beautiful kelim. Va'amru al maharil, and it was said over about the maharil. Sometimes he would have in his hand collateral that was given to him by non-Jews. He would have vessels that belonged to non-Jews that were given to him as collateral for loans. Kelim noim, beautiful vessels. Of course, he would never use them. They're not his. Rak b'Pesach, but on Pesach, by the Seder night, he would put them out by the Seder on a special table. He would put them out to be able to rejoice in seeing them, in order to create the visual effect of richness, to have beautiful kelim out. So whatever he had in his hands, even this collateral that he had in his hands from non-Jews, he would also put out by the Seder. Now, there's a very interesting Chassam Sofer over here that's brought down in Dirshu footnote number 9. He brings down here on the third line of footnote number 9, Ubishailas Chuvas Chassam Sofer, Kasav Oitam Lahanyach Mashkoino Shel Nachrim. The Chassam Sofer gives another explanation for this practice of the Maharil, and he says it was based on Shehu Zecher Lamasha Nemar. This served as a remembrance for what the pasuk tells us, Vayashilum Vayanatzlu es Mitzrayim. We know it's brought down by the Exodus from Mitzrayim, by Geulas Mitzrayim. The Yidden went around to the Mitzrim, and the Mitzrim gave them their beautiful kelim to take out with them. And it says, Vayanatzlu es Mitzrayim. They emptied out Mitzrayim. So after 210 years of being in Mitzrayim, after all of those years of being enslaved and terribly oppressed by the Mitzrim, when the Yidden finally left Mitzrayim, they took out the riches of Mitzrayim together with them. And it's not even that they plundered it. It's not that they went and they took. The Mitzrim gave it to them. The Mitzrim said, take it with you. So as a remembrance of that, the Maharil would take these mashkainos, these beautiful kalim that belonged to non-Jews that he had as collateral, he would put them out as a remembrance of all of those kalim that we took out with us. It's also brought down that the Maharil, of course, did not use these kalim because they were not his to use. He only put them out on the table to look at them. And he knew that on that, the non-Jews wouldn't have a hakpada. That wouldn't bother them that he did that with those kalim. They were given into his rishus, into his possession as a collateral. To just put them out on the table and look at them, nobody would be upset, but he would not use them. It's also brought down an interesting thing. There's also a Yeridea Shela over here. It's also brought down that you could only do this with kalim that you would only be used with cold food. Let's say you had a beautiful silver wine decanter. So a wine decanter is only used with cold wine. So you could put a beautiful silver wine decanter, let's say that belongs to a non-Jew, maybe that you could put out on a table. We don't have to worry that you're going to come to use it. Because even if you do use it, there isn't going to be a kashrus problem. It's only used with cold. A wine decanter maybe is not the best analogy, the best example to use here because of the problem of yayin nesach. So let's say something else, some kind of a crystal bowl that's only used with cold. So even if you would come to use it, it wouldn't present a kashrus issue. But let's say you had something that is typically used with hot food, that you're not allowed to put out near your table because of a chash, a concern that you might come to use it, which would present a kashrus issue. It's interesting how much goes into a simple line here in halacha, just talking about the Maharil using these kalim. Right away you get into chashemish b'chaylos, into Yeridea Shaylos. How complex halacha is. Now we go back up to the Mechaber. So the Mechaber says further on, V'yachin mekayim moishavai. A person, this is also a very interesting halacha that I think some people are not aware of. V'yachin mekayim moishavai. A person should prepare the place by the table where he's going to sit by the seder. Sheyeshev b'haseba derech cherus. And he should set up his seat so that he should be able to eat b'haseba, leaning derech cherus, in a very rich, a way that shows cherus, that shows freedom and shows relaxation and shows richness. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Eis Katan Zayin, sheyeshev b'haseba, that he should sit reclining. What the Mechaber wants to say here is, what is the translation of haseba? Roishai muta l'tzad smoil, with his head leaning towards the left side, al hamita, on a couch, ay al hasafsal, or on a bench, v'karim takas roishai, with cushions, pillows under his head, eitz al shulchan, next to the table. So the Mechaber is telling you over here that you should prepare your space, you should prepare your seat, so that you could sit with a proper haseba. He doesn't want you, it seems, to just sit in your regular chair the same way you always sit and just go like this. That's not what halacha is looking for. You should prepare your seat so that you should really be able to sit there with cushions and with pillows. And if we go back up to the Mishnah Berurah, to the Shulchan Aruch, take a look at what the Ramah says here. Haga, va'afilu ani she'ein lo karim, even an ani, this is taken straight out of the Mishnah in Arvei Psachim, va'afilu, the 10th parak of Masechtas Psachim, va'afilu ani, even a pauper, she'ein lo karim, who does not have pillows. Now you might think this pauper, he doesn't have pillows, he doesn't have cushions, so what kind of haseba is he really going to have? Once he's not going to have the pillows and the cushions, doesn't matter how he sits. Says the Ramah, yes. Va'afilu ani she'ein lo karim, a pauper who doesn't have cushions and pillows, yeshev al hasafsal, he should sit on a bench in a way that he can make haseba. Now we're going to see in the Mishnah Berurah right away, he changes the text over here. It's not supposed to be yeshev al hasafsal, that he should sit on a bench. It's supposed to be yasev al hasafsal. He should recline on the bench. You have to do whatever kind of haseba you can. So if you have a bench, set yourself up on a bench and lean over on the bench, but make sure that you're doing it in a derech cherus. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Yasev al hasafsal. Even the ani should lean on a bench. Kain tzarech laimar. that he should sit on a bench. Yasev ala safsal, he should recline on a bench. Well, it's at Smarlai, to his left side. Ve'emein loy safsal, and if this pauper doesn't even have a bench, v'hu yoshev ala karka, and he's sitting, he should recline to the left side on the ground. Aid kasra paiskim, the paiskim right. Let's say you don't have anything to lean on, and there's somebody sitting next to you. You could lean over and onto the leg of your mikri haseba al piadchak. That would also constitute halachically acceptable reclining. But not to sit like propped up on your own legs, to put your elbows on your legs like this, forward with your elbow on your thigh and with your hand like this. That you should not do. Why not? The mechse kedayeg, because that actually looks like you're worried. It looks like you're anxious, right? Somebody who's anxious, he sits leaning forward with his head in his hands. That's not derech cherus. What we see over here very clearly from the language of the Shulchan Aruch and the language of the Rambam is that just sitting in your regular chair and leaning over a bit is not what halach is looking for in haseba. You see very clearly that the Mechaber says yachin mekayim moishavai. You should prepare the place where you're sitting with pillows, with cushions, maybe with a bigger chair. I used to sit by the Seder. I don't have that chair anymore. I used to have a very big leather easy chair. And we used to bring that over to the table. It was a big, cushiony, leather, easy chair, very roomy, and I would put the pillows on it, and I would sit, and I would lean, and my children bought me a lap desk that would go over on the two arms of the chair. It would be over on my lap. My Haggadah would be there. My kais would be there. That was a real derech cherus. Unfortunately, I don't have that chair anymore. So I've been using really the same chair that I use all year round, a swivel chair that I use by the dining room table. But I see now, really, I remember now why I started using that easy chair. Because you see, that's what halacha wants. Halacha wants you to prepare something special, something significant, where you really make a significant haseba that really shows derech cherus with cushions and with pillows. So that's what we should strive to do. Let's go back into the Shulchan Aruch. We go now to Siv Gimel. Kishahu Mesev. When you make haseba by the mitzvahs of the Seder, layata al gabay, you should not lay back on your back. V'loy al panav, you shouldn't lay on your stomach. V'loy al yaminai, and not on your right side. Ella al smoilai. Proper haseba is reclining on the left side. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut and test. Lo yate. You shouldn't lay on your back or on your stomach or on your right. That's not derech cherus. That's somehow not the way a rich person that's relaxed and reclining out of richness and relaxation. That's not the way it's done. V'lo al yamina is cutting yud, not on the right side. Now we have two reasons here. One is the lo shma haseba. That's not called haseba derech cherus, to lean over on the right side. Why not? Kevin shetzarich lechol biyaminai. Because the vast majority of people are right-handed. So they eat using their right hand. And if you're leaning over on your right side, so now how do you use your right hand to eat? That's not comfortable. So it's not derech cherus. You lean over on your left side so that your right hand is free. That's the first reason that the Mishnah Berurah brings down over here. And this comes from the Rashbam on the Gemara in Psachim and Arvei Psachim. This is the first reason that the Rashbam brings down. Now the Mishnah Berurah says another reason, and I think this is the reason that most people are familiar with. There's another reason why halacha says that haseba is on the left, not the right. Because we're afraid that if you recline on your right side, then the esophagus, the esophageal opening, will be first. The food will encounter the shemakanakana, the windpipe, the opening of the trachea. The food will encounter the tracheal opening before it will the esophageal opening. The veshet, because the esophagus, hu b'tzad yamin, is on the right side. If you lean to the right, the flap that covers up the trachea will open up, and and the food could get in over there, and the person could chas v'chalila choke. And I think that's the reason that most people are aware of why we lean on the left and not the right, because somehow in the physiology of a person, there's more of a chance of choking if you lean on the right than if you lean on the left. And of course, halacha is not going to require you to do something where there is a risk. Now the Ramah says here, we go back up into the Shulchan Aruch. By me, it is on the fourth line, in the middle of the line, right by the Ois Cut and Yod Aleph of the Mishnah Berurah. Ve'ein chiluk ben iter la'acher. There is no difference between a left-handed person and everybody else. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Cut and Yod Aleph, ve'ein chiluk. Ritzayna Laimar, what the Ramah wants to add over here is, Tegam iter, even a left-handed person, tzarech lahasev al smoil kol adam. He has to lean on the left of every person. Even though the first reason we said why haseba is on the right is because most people eat with their right hand, and therefore if a right-handed person will make haseba on his right side, it'll be uncomfortable for him to eat. So you might have thought that a left-handed person who eats with his left hand, maybe he shouldn't do haseba on the left because it'll be uncomfortable for him to eat. So for that, the Ramah is telling you no. Even a left-handed person should make haseba on the left. Even though according to the first rationale that we gave, he should make haseba on the right side. Nevertheless, in lechalek we do not differentiate mipnei tam sheni, because the second reason takes primacy, of the chance that the food will go into the trachea instead of the esophagus. And this reason is much more important to us, mishum to have a sakanta, because there's a risk of danger. Sakanta me isura, and we always treat any risk of danger more stringently than we treat isura, than we treat questions of prohibition. So over here, we're going to concern ourselves more with the risk to health, with the sakanta, with the danger, and we're going to say that even the left-handed person should make haseba on the left, even though he's going to have to experience some discomfort and use his right hand to eat. He'll have to figure out how to eat with his right hand. Excuse me. B'diavad im hasev outside yamin yotza. B'diavad, if the lefty made haseba on his right side, he fulfills the mitzvahs that he did in that way. The yamin shaloi, because his right side, harehu kismoil kol adam, is the equivalent of the left side of everybody else. So while initially we're going to tell the lefty that he should make haseba on the left like everybody else, if he did make haseba on the right, we will rely on the fact that his right hand is the equivalent of everybody else's left hand, and therefore his haseba is good enough. We're not going to make him redo those mitzvahs, like eat his matzvah over again, because his haseba is inadequate. We're going to say that his haseba was good enough. Now we go to Siv Daled. Isha einot tzreicha haseba. A woman does not have to perform haseba. A woman does not have to be mekayim the mitzvahs of the Seder night, eating the matzah, drinking the kaisis, reclining. Ella in kain hi chashuva, unless she is a prominent, so to speak, a chashuva, a prominent woman. Says the Ramah, Haga, v'chal anashim shalanu mikre chashuvais. All of our women fall under this rubric of being kashuvais. They're all considered to be prominent. Brings us down from the Mordechai and the Brigham of Reb Sachem and the Rebbeinu Yerucham. However, says the Ramah, loy nahagu lahasev. Our women are not accustomed to doing haseba, ki samchu al divrei Ravya, because they rely on the psak of the Ravya, the Kasav who writes the bizman hazeh ein lahasev, that bizman hazeh nobody should do haseba, not men, not women. Now, what's behind this? Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice cut in Yud Beis. Einot tzricha haseba. First, the Mechaber began by saying that women are not required to perform haseba. Says the Mechaber, says the Mishnah Berurah, the reason for the Mechaber is the stam isha ein darka lahasev b'shum pam, because it wasn't the derech of an isha to eat doing haseba. So therefore, it's not a show of cherus. The whole reason we eat b'haseba is to show cherus. and it was the way of rich people to eat reclining on a couch. So even if everybody typically didn't do it, but on the Seder night, when we want to exhibit an extra degree of haseba, so we tell people to do haseba. But women didn't eat by haseba. Even rich women, it seems, didn't eat by haseba. So therefore, it's not an exhibition of cherus. If it's not an exhibition of cherus, there's no reason to do it. In Ois Katan Yud Gimel, the Ramah says that even though the Mechaber says that an Isha Chashuva did do haseba, and all of our women are called Chashuvais, the Ramah said, Loi Nagu Lahasev, it's not our minig. Our women are not accustomed to do haseba. And he says that they're relying on the psak of the Ravya, who says that nobody should do haseba. Let's take a look in Mishnah Berurah's Katan Yud Gimel. The Bizman Hazeh Ein Lahasev. The Ravya says no one should do haseba. Taimai. Kevan de Ein Regilus Partzeinu B'Shayimais Hashana Lahasev Elo Yoshev Kedarkai. The truth is, nowadays, at least in our areas here in the United States, who eats paseba? Nobody eats paseba. You go to the fanciest restaurants, everybody's eating in chairs. Nobody is sitting reclining on couches. So haseba is just not a thing. We don't do haseba. And therefore, says the Ravya, again, it's not an exhibition of cherus for us to do haseba. Nobody does haseba. Now, why is it that the women were relying on the Ravya that says that no one should do haseba nowadays in order to excuse women from doing haseba? But we don't rely on the Ravya and say men also should not do haseba. So if you take a look in the Dirshu footnote number 16, which is in the back in the Miluim, it's not here on this page. So it's on page 32, at least in mine. I have the one volume, not the small pamphlets. But in this volume, it's on page 32 in the back. Dirshu footnote 16. In the second paragraph of the footnote, in the second line of the second paragraph. He brings down over here something very nice from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Zechat Tzaddik Kodesh Levracha. Ubir Again Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Takanas Haseba Loihaisa Lechlal Hanoshim, Lekol al Hanoshim, Kevin Shaloyaya Darkon Bekach. They didn't include women in the original takana of haseba, because again, it wasn't the derech of a woman to do haseba. So they didn't include them in the takana of haseba because that wasn't considered an exhibition of cherus. Elarak linoshim chashuvais ukamoisha kasav shulchan aruch. The only women that did haseba were noshim chashuvais, very prominent women. Men. A lot of men did haseba. So when they made the takana of haseba, that everybody should do haseba by the Seder to exhibit cherus, they included all men, because all men sometimes did haseba. But women, by and large, did not do haseba. So they did not include women in the takana of haseba, except for nashim chashuvais. And that's why the Shulchan Aruch wrote that nashim chashuvais should do haseba. Nowadays, we don't do haseba at all. So there's no room at all for the women to do haseba. So in essence, what he's saying is like this. He's saying that the reason we're makel by women is because the truth is it was never the derech for women to do haseba. It was the derech for men to do haseba. It was never the derech for women to do haseba. Only nashim chashuvais did haseba. So really nowadays there's like a double reason to be makel by women. One reason is that it was never the derech for women to do haseba, and furthermore nowadays it's not the derech for anybody to do haseba. So for women we rely on the Ravya, and women do not do haseba. Men, it was the derech for men to do haseba. Again, now it's not really the derech for anybody to do haseba, but since there was a takana of haseba for men, so men, we do haseba. Now, the other thing that I would point out over here is that if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, the Shulchan Aruch says, Isha einot tzricha haseba. A woman is not required to do haseba. He doesn't say Isha b'fnei baila. It doesn't say a woman in the presence of her husband. It says a woman. The implication over here is that this would apply the same way to, let's say, a single lady. A single young lady who's sitting by her parents' table also would not do haseba. In other words, it's not a question, because the Rishonim do discuss this as well, which is that an isha is kafuf labaila, the fact that we're going to see later that a Rebbe doesn't do haseba in front, a Talmud doesn't do haseba in front of his Rebbe, because Meir Rabbi Olav, the fear of his Rebbe is on him. Not fear, but it means that in the presence of his Rebbe, it's not proper for him to be sitting behaseba. A Talmud in front of his Rebbe should not be so relaxed, and so he's in front of his Rebbe. In front of his Rebbe, he has to sit with a certain amount of yira. So too, we speak about a father in front of a son in front of a father, but over there we say a son should do haseba because the father wants the son to do haseba. It's also brought down a woman b'fnei baila, that a woman doesn't sit that way in front of her husband. But that's not what the Mechaber is saying over here. The Mechaber is not focusing on that. The Mechaber is focusing on the fact that it's not the derech of an Isha to do Haseba at all. And therefore, he doesn't say Isha b'fnei baila. He says Isha ein tzricha Haseba. So this would seem to apply to a single woman as well. Now we continue the Mishnah Berurah Eis Katan Yud Gimel. By me, it is 4 lines off the bottom near the end of the line. Aval, somebody who's in mourning. Aval taich shneim asar chaydesh al aviv v'imay. An aval who is in mourning for his father or his mother, so the period of avelus lasts a full 12 months. Ay taich shloishim al shar kroivim, or an aval who is within the 30-day mourning period that applies to other relatives, a brother, a sister. Kegayin shalei nag shiva lefnei haregel, if he did not complete sitting shiva before Yom Tov. If an aval, let's say somebody is in avelus for a brother, somebody is in avelus for a brother, and he completed shiva before Yom Tov. So the time period of shloshim, he went from shiva into shloshim before Yom Tov. So then, when Yom Tov begins, the shloshim is considered ended. The Yom Tov breaks the shloshim. But if he didn't complete shiva before Yom Tov, then the shloshim continues after Yom Tov. So let's say an aval, somebody who's in avelus for a parent, and it's within 12 months, or avelus for another relative, and he's in the middle of shloshim, av shehu chayiv ba'aseba, even though he is chayiv, he is obligated in haseba, he's required to do haseba, mikamakayim, nevertheless, hanachayin, it would be proper, shelo yasev amita kvudo kalula, that he should not do haseba on a nice fancy couch with cushions and pillows and everything else. Ela Yosef Mishino Ktas, he should do a little haseba to fulfill the requirement of haseba, but not in a very luxurious way. Dahainu al mita, on a couch, v'kari echad, maybe one pillow, tachas marashoisav, under his head, ayal birke chaveroi, or on the leg of his friend. The kittel, and as far as wearing a kittel, nagu, our custom is shalei lilbaish, that a mourner should not wear a kittel. When we call makayim halavei shein meichin biyadai, but an aval who does wear a kittel, nobody should rebuke him for doing that. Now, why do we wear a kittel by the Seder? Right? I think a lot of people wonder. I think a lot of people are under misconception. I think a lot of people think the reason we wear a kittel by the Seder is because it's derech cherus, like it's a fancy malbush. But the truth is, when else do we wear a kittel? We wear a kittel on Yom Kippur. Why do we wear a kittel on Yom Kippur? Because it's the beged of a mace. When they bury somebody, they bury him in a kittel. It's supposed to bring hachna. It's supposed to bring humility, so that a person can come to tshuva. Zacharis Yom Hamisa, supposed to remind somebody of the day of death and the final judgment. So the kittel is not considered a fancy, rich garment. The kittel is considered a beged of humility. So why do we wear it by the Seder? The reason we wear it by the Seder is because the Seder night, when, like we began this Siman, what did the Mishnah Berurah tell us? The Mishnah Berurah said we're going to adorn our table with all sorts of fancy kalim, even though really we're not supposed to do that all year round. All year round, we're not indulging in materialistic things, in richness and in luxury. But by the Seder night, we want to do that. By the Seder night, we have luxury because we're trying to exhibit cherus. We need the reminder of the kittel. We don't want you to get carried away. It's very easy to get carried away. Think about it. We have a rich table, fancy foods, wine. It's very easy to get carried away. So we put on a kittel to remind ourselves. Let's take it down a notch. Let's remain humble. Let's focus on what it is that we're doing. This is all a Shem mitzvah. This is all a Shem Shemayim. Let's not get carried away. An avel doesn't really need to do that because an avel is in avelus. He's in mourning. And the truth is, an avel, all 12 months of avelus on a parent, or during the shloshim on avelus for another relative, he's not supposed to be mesiach das from avelus. He's always supposed to have that feeling of mourning, that feeling of avelus is always supposed to be somewhere on his mind. So that will give him the required step down. He won't get carried away with luxury and riches. Now we go to Sif Hey on the bottom line. Like I said yesterday, I'm going to try to cover each night a little extra ground so we can catch up to the Dirsha schedule. Sif Hey, Ben Eitzel Aviv, a son who is having the Seder by his father. Tzarich Haseba, he has to perform Haseba. Afilu hu Rabbi Muvak, even if the father is his Rebbe Muvak, his real Rebbe that he learns most of his Chachma from. So even if the father has the status of a Rebbe and a father, he performs Haseba by his father. The Talmud lifnei Rabbi, but a Talmud in front of his Rebbe, Einoi tzarich Haseba, is not required to perform Haseba. And indeed, the Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us not only Einoi tzarich Haseba, not only is he not required to perform Haseba, it's usher for him to perform Haseba. Afilu Einoi Rabbi Muvak, even if the Rebbe that he's by is not his Rebbe Muvak. It's not the Rebbe that he learned most of his Torah from, but it is his Rebbe. He doesn't perform Haseba in front of his Rebbe. Ella im kein yiten lai Rabbi Rishus, unless his Rebbe verbally, clearly stated and gave him permission to perform Haseba. The Talmud Chacham muflig b'darai, and if you're dealing with a Gadol Adar, if you're dealing with a Talmud Chacham muflig b'darai, a Talmud Chacham who is separated from the rest in his generation, so somebody who's really, really special, a Gadol, even if he's not your Rebbe, if you happen to be having the Seder by a Gadol, and this Gadol is not your Rebbe, you never learned by him, Chashiv Kerabbai, we consider him halachically as your Rebbe, ve'enoi tzarich Haseba, and you do not perform Haseba. The Ramah says, v'dafka kisha'ochlan al shulchan echad, this halacha only stands when you're eating together with the Rebbe by one table. But let's say it's a mass Seder, and the Rebbe or the Gadol is up there by one table, and you're on a separate table, then tzarich lahasev, then you are required to perform Haseba. We go back to Pei Amud Aleph on the bottom line. Mishnah Berurah is cutting your Dalet. Tzarich Haseba, a son by his father is required to perform Haseba, even if the father is also his Rebbe Muvak, even if his father is also the Rebbe that he learned most of his Torah from. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Da'afta haben chayiv b'chvaydai u'v'mayra'ai, even though a son is obligated to treat his father both with kavod, with respect, and also yira, also mayra, he has to be, so to speak, in fear of his father. So when he sits by his father, maybe it's not proper that he should sit by Haseba. The fear of his father is supposed to be upon him. He's not supposed to sit in such a luxurious, relaxed way. Still, says the Mishnah Berurah, he explains that still in all, the halacha is that he does perform Haseba. But first, Mishnah Berurah says, V'chol shekein imhu rabbi, and certainly if the father also happens to be the son's Rebbe, Mikamakam, nevertheless, Tzarich Haseba, the son is required to perform Haseba, the mistama of Machil Libnei, because minastam, we assume, and this is brought down from a She'iltis and a Kolbai and an Abu Daram, we assume that the father is Michael. The father forgives on he yields, so to speak, his honor to the son, and he allows the son to sit by Haseba. The truth is, what does a father want? A father wants his son to be comfortable by his table. A father doesn't want that his son should be treating him with trepidation. Father wants to have a close relationship. My Rebbe, Reuben Feinstein, Zolzan Gesundten Stark, always says that this is why the Rabbeinu Shalom gave us a Beis Hamikdash, and we see how chamor, how stringent the halachas of the Beis Hamikdash are. if you come into the Beis Hamikdash when you're tamei, you're chayv kares. Now, a person could become tamei and forget himself. Let's say we're not dealing with a Kayin. Let's say we're dealing with a Yisrael. He became tamei. He could live a lot of his life in tumah. And now, 6 months later, he comes to the Beis Hamikdash. He forgot that he was tamei. So, the chances of tripping up with tumah and kachim and the Beis Hamikdash, there's a lot of opportunity, unfortunately, for that. And we find that the Torah Kedoshah give us a lot of karbanos that are mechaper, are not avera. The carbon, the sa'ir of a chatas that we bring on Rosh Chodesh, a carbon tzibur, it's a carbon that was brought on behalf of the whole Klal Yisrael in the Beis Hamikdash. Every Rosh Chodesh was brought to be mechaper al Tomas Migdash u'kedashav. So the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us a Beis Hamikdash where, so to speak, there's a certain risk, but he also gave us a lot of karbanos, a lot of sacrifices to give us kapara, to bring us forgiveness in case we tripped up. You know why? Because he wants us to come. He wants us to be there. So the Fak Vaidai, and he wants his son to sit b'haseba, by the Seder. Ois Katan Tezvav, the Shulchan Aruch said that a Talmud in front of his Rebbe, Einoit Tzarech Haseba, is not required to perform Haseba. Now, the Mishnah Berurah points out, Mishum de Bereisha Amar Tzarech, since in the first halacha in this Seif, the language of the Mechaber was that a son in front of a father, Tzarech Haseba, is required to perform Haseba. Amar Anakad Hacha Einoit Tzarech. So over here, by the halacha of a Talmud and a Rebbe, the Mechaber employs the same lashon, the same language, and he says that a Talmud in front of his Rebbe, Einoit Tzarech Haseba, is not required to perform Haseba. Avo be'emes, but truthfully, says the Chavetz Chaim, Isura nami ikala hasev b'fanav. It would be prohibited for the Talmud to do Haseba in front of his Rebbe. The Moira Rabbi Kamara Shamayim, because the Talmud is obligated to treat his Rebbe with the same level of fear, of trepidation, that he approaches Hashem, that he approaches Shamayim. A Talmud has to comport himself in the presence of his Rebbe in an awestruck way. He has to approach his Rebbe with a certain amount of yira, of I'm trying to think the proper word in English that I'm looking for. There's a certain seriousness. You don't come to your Rebbe. You're not a casual acquaintance by your Rebbe. And the truth is, this is something that nowadays is becoming harder and harder and harder. I see the Talmidim nowadays, especially by the younger children. It's like they're very palsy-walsy with their Rebbeim. Hey, Rebbe, how you doing? What's up? Da, 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 da. And it extends even, unfortunately, into older boys in high school and this and that. I know we always referred to our Rebbe in third person. Now, there's a reason for this. It's not just a formality. There's a reason for it. The Torah HaKadoshah is very dependent on a chain of Mesorah. The Torah is handed down, Rebbe to Talmud, Rebbe to Talmud, Rebbe to Talmud, one generation to the next. And that Mesorah, that tradition has to be treated with great seriousness. When Talmidim become very casual with their Rabbeim, it's very easy for them to treat what their Rabbeim say with a certain amount of casualness and a certain amount of lack of respect, so that it's very easy for them later on to do different than their Rebbe. Yeah, my Rebbe did like that, but I think like this. It's not supposed to be that way. There's a chain of tradition. I'll never forget, I was once in the matzah bakery. We were learning Hilchos Pesach. We were in the matzah bakery, and a question came up by saying Kaddish, what the proper Ivra, what the proper grammar, the vowelization of the words in Kaddish should be. Is it Yiskadal v'Yiskadash Shemei Rabbah, or Yiskadel v'Yiskadesh? Is it with a patach or with a tzere? And all of the people in the room were Talmidim, just about, of the same Rabbeim. And one of the Rabbeim were there in the room. And this is a Rebbe who says Kaddish by davening almost every day in the yeshiva. And people are saying, should it be Yiskadel? Should it be Yiskadal? The Rebbe was standing there looking at the matzahs, not saying a word. Somebody turned to him and said, I see the Rebbe is being very, very quiet. So he turned around, and I remember the look on his face. He had a very upset look on his face. And he was holding the matzah, and he turned around to the olam, and he said, can I ask you a question? You all learned in the yeshiva. How many thousands of times did you hear your Rabbeim say Kaddish? And now you're debating what the proper vowelization of the words are? You heard your Rabbeim say Kaddish thousands of times. How could you have a question if it should be this way or it should be that way? You want to have a discussion of the merits, and you want to say, it's interesting. We say it this way. I wonder why. L'chera, there would be a valid reason to say it the other way. You want to have that discussion, you can have that discussion. But you want to have a discussion which way is right, which way is wrong. There's a Messiah. You heard it from your Rabbeim. The way your Rabbeim did it, that's what's right. So the Messiah is very important. And in order to protect the Messiah, there is this concept that a Rebbe is not a Rebbe and a Talmud do not have a casual relationship. A Rebbe and a Talmud have a very serious relationship. They could have a close relationship, 100%. But there always has to be a Moira Rabbi. There always has to be. You always have to realize when you come to your Rebbe, you're in the presence of your Rebbe. You're not in the presence of your friend. You're not in the presence of your pal. Okay. Ois Cotton Tezayin. So the Shulchan Aruch said, you don't do a seba ela im kain unless the Rebbe gave permission to the Talmud to do haseba. If the Rebbe went ahead and gave rishus, if he granted his leave to the Talmud that the Talmud should do a seba, then he is now obligated, like everybody else, to do a seba. The Rebbe told him to. If the Rebbe grants him leave, he has to verbally state it. It has to be very clear. Not that the Talmud comes to the Rebbe Seder and says, I'm sure he would want me to do a seba. No, he has to say it. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting Yudches. The Ramah said that this halacha applies when you're sitting at the same table as the Rebbe. But if you're sitting at a separate table, al shulchan b'fnei atzmai, afal pishu b'fnei rabbi, even though you still might be in the presence of the Rebbe, still, since you're at a separate table, you can make haseba without rishus. The reason is, Kevin dehu b'shulchan b'fnei atzmai, since he's sitting at his own table, ein haseba shaloi zilzul l'chvod harav. This haseba that he's doing at a different table, that's not a zilzul. That's not taking away from the honor of the Rebbe. I'm not sitting at his table. The Pri Chadash disagrees with this. In his opinion, Kol Sharayeyu Rabbi, as long as the Rebbe could see you, you cannot do a seba because of the fear of the Rebbe. The Pri Megadim writes, in such a case where you're at a different table, but the Rebbe could see you, it would be better that you should ask for permission. We're going to go to Siv Vav, a very short Sif. Says the Shulchan Aruch in Siv Vav, Hashamish Tzarech HaSeba, a butler, a waiter who's waiting the table by the Seder, but he's also partaking in the Seder. He has to make HaSeba. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting your test, Tzarech HaSeba, Fa'afilu b'fnei Adonai, even in front of his master. Even though the Tzarchei Abayis, the needs of the people sitting and having the Seder, are put on him. He's the one responsible to make sure that the wine is there, the matzah is there, everything is there. So he's busy. Nevertheless, he still has to exhibit cherus and luxury, Pesach by the Seder. And he has to eat the matzah shel mitzvah and the afikomen, and he has to drink the 4 kaises. So too a worker. Let's say you have an apprentice who is having the Seder together with his master. That apprentice has to do a Seder in front of the quote-unquote Rebbe, in front of the master. An Eved Ivri, a Jewish servant, would have to perform a Seder in front of his Adain by the Matzah Shel Mitzvah. When it comes to an Eved Kanani, there's a discussion amongst the Achrayim. We'll stop over here by Sif Zayin. So we picked up a little ground. I hope to do so every night. Thank you so much for joining me for this Torah learning. The Schos of Liman HaTorah should stand Gans Klal Yisrael in good stead. The Rabban Shalom should send Yeshuas and Refuas to all that need it. The Rabban Shalom should send Parnasa to everybody who's in need. We should know only from Simcha. And the Rabban Shalom should send the Gael Tzedek. So we should have true Simcha. And we should know what it means to have true Avodas Hashem, the way it's supposed to be. We should have a Beis Hamikdash and Karbanos and all the halachas of Kachim and Tumah Tahara and everything else. Be well.